Prof, food innovation or the so-called new food, such as cell-based meat, are perceived as very hot emerging developments. Can you share your thoughts on the strategic significance of this new technological innovation in our food ecosystem? Does new food in any way change the balance of what we know the food system as is today?
I think to try and address this, this particular matter, it's first of all important to understand where we are in terms of, let's say, consumption of animal-based meat. Okay? Animal protein consumption, meat consumption has been growing almost exponentially in different countries, in the developing world. China is a classical example. Okay? Uh, Today, the average Chinese and also the average Southeast Asian eats less than 40 kilograms of animal protein per person per year. You contrast this with America, North America especially, where the average consumption of animal protein, especially meat, is over 120 kilograms, okay? 3 to 4 times as much. Now, just think about the fact that our middle class is also growing in the Asia region, all right? And everybody aspires to eat more protein. Okay? So straight away you can see that the equation is there, that the demand for animal protein is so high here. What does this mean? Okay, we know that animals are woefully inefficient in terms of converting plant material into protein. Okay? And that has repercussions, amongst which is on the environment, for example, in terms of water pollution, then on greenhouse gases. Yeah, so there's a whole lot of negative environmental effects, from the livestock industry. And it's not just cattle, it's also hogs, it's poultry, and so on. Okay? All of it leads to things like climate change effects and so on. So to meet this increasing demand for animal protein, governments, experts have been searching for alternatives. And one of the more modern technological alternatives is, of course, cell-based, cellular meat, or lab-based meat. Okay? Cell culture of let's say plant animals is nothing new. We've been doing that for ages. But the ability to massify this, okay, and to do this in a way that it results in products which consumers would view as food. Now that's what the real development is. Yeah. So today, we hear a lot of attention being paid to whether we can produce meat, whether it's beef or chicken, in big bioreactors, okay, colloquially labs, basically. Yeah? And we hear a lot about that. Okay? Although the first product has just been on the market, basically, the proof of consumption here in Singapore. Singapore, in fact, is the first country to approve a cellular chicken made by a California company. And this just happened a few months ago and made a lot of news, right? So, cut a long story short, this is an area that's developing very fast. A lot of money has been invested in startups up to Series A, even Series B, to try and get this to market. Okay? But so far, only one product is on the market. The R&D is still addressing foundational questions. Like the cost of production is very high at the moment. Okay? A gram, in fact, of cellular meat is way beyond the reach of ordinary people at the moment, right? Mainly because the technology has not reached a stage yet where the nutrients needed to produce these cells, has not been scaled up to a stage where they can be mass produced. Okay, the science is still not strong enough there yet. So a lot of foundational still has to be done. But very soon, I would say in less than 5 years, we're going to see some of this go to market and start making a dent on the $1 trillion animal industry, worldwide. And because of the growing consumption of animal meat, certainly in Asia, number one, and secondly, because of the concern too about health issues, that animal meat transmitted, potential diseases, people are taking a real serious look at whether we can replace livestock originated meat with so-called cell-based or lab-based meat. Okay? Now that's one part of that. And then the other part of the food innovation story, of course, is plant-based protein, okay, which is also produced in the lab, but which uses as raw material legumes that we're very familiar with, things like soybeans, you know, chickpea, mung beans, and so on. In fact, in Asia, we've had a long history of eating plant-based protein. Tempeh in Indonesia, natto in Japan, and so on. And amongst the people of the Buddhist faith, okay, it's very, very common to have mock meat, okay, itself, which is really plant-based protein. Yeah? So the new technologies allow us to see a different form of plant-based protein. Right? And the most popular one right now in both the US and Asia, of course, is represented by companies like Impossible Food and Beyond Meat, where they've replaced kind of animal beef burgers with plant-based, impossible, I shouldn't use the word artificial, but plant-based patties. Okay? And in blind tests, in fact, the blind tests have shown that many people can't even distinguish between a real beef patty and a plant-based meat patty. And the technology is so advanced, even that they can make the plant-based patty behave like what we call a medium rare beef patty. It actually bleeds, but it doesn't bleed blood. It bleeds a plant-based equivalent, okay, of the blood called heme. Okay? So again, the point is that science and technology is developing, so fast, really advancing so fast in this whole area, that it won't be too long before we see, this lab cultured protein become part of our diet. Now, the big unknown question is consumer acceptance. Okay? What in today's world we call social licensing. In fact, some of the big companies that have invested in this recognize this. They recognize the fact that social license for new novel food, and also for food from novel processors like plant factories, is something that really has to be addressed very early on, okay, before the investments get too heavy, yeah, and basically we reach a situation where you've got products but no buyers. Yeah, so we need to avoid that. And there are things that can be done, and hopefully awareness is the first step, okay, towards anticipating the social licensing problem, okay, and the societal acceptance of new types of food. Yeah.